That knows when you get there.
It was just me and him, and then I think it was just me and him all night. I don't remember anybody else showing up.
And you said you spent the night?
I'm pretty sure I did, yes. Actually, yes, I'm positive I did. I did spend the night.
You can't remember if you spent the night at Noah's or stayed at your grandparents'?
She kept saying no. She said she didn't care about the relationship anymore. She said, you need to stop, you're crazy.
She was asleep. That's the detail that stays with you long after everything else fades. Not awake, not fighting, not even aware. Emma Jane Walker was 16 years old, in her own bed, in her own room, in the house where she had grown up, and she never heard a thing. 2 shots fired through the exterior wall in the dark. One bullet struck her behind the left ear. The other lodged in her pillow inches from where her head had been. Her parents found her the next morning. They touched her foot. It was cold. And the person who did it, he had already sent messages to his friends asking them to stay quiet.
He had no reason to withhold the weapon. He had nothing to hide. And that, if anything, it could prove that he was innocent.
Alex.
Just outright, like, what happened to the gun that you showed me? And he said, I returned it to my grandpa, you don't have to worry about it. And his mom walks out and begins questioning Riley in front of me about the whereabouts of the gun.
So what are you making of this?
He bold-faced lied to me just then.
He was already planning where to throw the gun. This is the story of Emma Walker. And before we go any further, because this case goes places that are genuinely hard to sit with, if you're not subscribed to this channel yet, do it now. Not for the algorithm. Because Emma's name deserves to be said by as many people as possible. Hit subscribe and stay with me. Emma Jane Walker was born to Jill and Mark Walker in Knoxville, Tennessee. Her mother said the name had always meant something specific to her. Chosen. Wanted. When I finally had a baby girl, Jill said, it was a huge blessing. They settled in the Sturchy Hills neighborhood, quiet streets, the kind of place where people know each other's names. Emma grew up there, and by the time she reached high school, she had become someone worth noticing. Not because she pushed for it, but because she didn't have to. She was naturally warm, easy to be around, strong-willed in a way her mother mentioned often, and clearly with pride. She had opinions. She had standards. She didn't just go along with things, and she never had, not even at 14. She also knew what she wanted to do with her life. Not in the vague way teenagers sometimes do. She had a specific plan. She wanted to become a neonatal intensive care nurse, to work with premature babies, the smallest and most fragile patients. The East Tennessee Children's Hospital wasn't far from where she lived, and she talked about it the way you talk about something you can already picture yourself doing. It wasn't a daydream. It was a direction. In the fall of 2014, Emma started as a freshman at Central High School. She made the cheerleading squad almost immediately, the only freshman in her year to do it. Lauren Hutton, a senior at the time, spotted her straight away. Emma didn't just hang around or watch from the edge, she said. She showed up ready to give it her all. Being around her just felt easy. Her friends described her as loyal, generous, funny, so someone who truly cared about the people close to her. She loved animals deeply. She had dogs, and if it had been up to her, there would have been more of them. She was, in every sense that matters, just getting started. That was Emma's world in September 2014. And it was in that same month that she met William Riley Gaul. Riley Gaul was a junior at Central High. 18 years old, a wide receiver on the football team, 2 years older than the girl he had started noticing on the cheerleading sideline. People who knew him then didn't describe him as the typical athlete. One friend said he was a little nerdy on the side. He played video games. He could be funny. He seemed on the surface ordinary. When Emma's parents first met him, they liked him. Jill would later describe him as the boy next door. Polite, kind, easy to be around. Mark felt the same. Respectful, they said. The kind of young man you don't immediately question. So when the two of them started dating, it didn't raise concerns. A cheerleader and a football player at the same small high school. It almost felt expected. Early on, nothing seemed off, no obvious red flags, no clear reason to worry, but sometimes things don't show themselves right away. Controlling relationships rarely announce themselves. They move faster than they should. They build little by little, taking things away slowly. Friendships, independence, a person's sense of what feels right. By the time you notice the pattern, it has already been going on for a while. As Riley Gaul's relationship with Emma Walker went on, the people closest to her started to notice the change. He became more possessive. He paid close attention to who Emma talked to. He had opinions about what she wore, where she went, who she spent time with. He didn't like certain friendships, and he made that known. Emma's parents saw it. They tried to step in. They set limits. At one point, they told Emma she wasn't allowed to see him anymore, that he was not welcome in their home. But Emma was strong-willed, and she kept seeing him. That detail is not a criticism of her. It is, if anything, a description of how these situations work. The person who wants to leave is not always the one with the clearest view of what they're leaving. After Riley graduated, he moved on to Maryville College, about 16 miles south of Knoxville. He joined the football team as a wide receiver. Technically, the relationship became long distance. But distance didn't create space. If anything, the focus intensified. And by the autumn of 2016, Emma had made a decision. She was done, not taking a break, not stepping back. Done for good. Those were the words she used with her friend Keegan Lyle in October of that year. Her family said the same. She had made up her mind, and she meant it. What she didn't fully account for was what happens when someone who has spent years trying to control you simply refuses to accept that you've left. Around that same time, Riley Gaul was dropped from the Maryville College football team. No team, no routine, no structure, just time, and a growing fixation on someone who had already said goodbye. Here's where you need to stay with me, because what happened next wasn't impulsive. It was a sequence, and when you lay it out step by step, it changes the way you read everything that came after. Emma had blocked Riley's number, a reasonable step, a normal one. He found an app called Phoner, software that generates anonymous temporary phone numbers. The messages kept coming. Only now they had no name attached. Just texts appearing from nowhere, from someone she couldn't identify, couldn't block, couldn't stop. Think about what that feels like. You've ended a relationship. You've blocked the person. And your phone keeps buzzing with messages from an unknown number, and somewhere in the back of your mind, you already know. Then came the staged kidnapping. One evening, Emma received a frantic message. Riley, it claimed, had been taken, kidnapped and left somewhere near the house she was visiting. It sounded urgent, frightening, the kind of message that makes you react before you have time to question it. So she went outside with her friend Zach Green. And there, under a streetlight, was Riley Gaul. Lying face down in a ditch, he lifted his head, looking confused, said he didn't know what had happened, said he'd been taken, had no idea where he was. Emma asked why he was there. He said he didn't know. She didn't fully believe him, but she didn't yet know how far this would go. Then came the figure in black. Neighbors around the Walker family home started noticing someone moving through the area at odd hours, dressed entirely in black, quiet, watching. Surveillance cameras caught glimpses. Emma was frightened. She texted Riley about it. He denied everything, said he wasn't there, knew nothing about it. At one point, he even showed up as if he was there to protect her. Later, a witness would note that the figure in black had been seen heading toward a community pool nearby, a place Riley was known to park when he came into the neighborhood without being seen. She was being stalked by the same person who had presented himself as her protector from the stalker. He had built the threat and then walked into it as the solution. That is a level of calculation that is very difficult to sit with, because it means nothing he said or did during that entire period was real. Not the concern, not the confusion, not the showing up, none of it. Every gesture of care was part of the same system as the threat that made her need it. Emma was scared. Her parents were scared. They tried to raise concerns. They tried to get help. But there wasn't much the system could do with what they had at that point. No direct, chargeable threat. Just fear, building quietly, with nowhere to go. And the person behind it wasn't finished. Before we go any further, I want to stop here for a second. If you've watched this far and you're not subscribed yet, this is the moment. Because what's coming next is why this case matters beyond the headlines. The details that follow are the ones that never make it into a short news segment. They're the ones that tell you everything about who Emma was and everything about what was taken from her. Subscribe now, and I'll make sure you don't miss a single one of these stories. The night of the 20th of November 2016, moving into the early hours of the 21st, was cold in Knoxville. The Walker family home in Sturchy Hills was quiet. Emma had gone to bed. Her parents were asleep. The neighborhood was still. Riley Gaul had been there before, back when things were normal, back when he was still welcome. He knew that house. He knew the layout. He knew where Emma's room was. In the days leading up to that night, he had taken a 9mm Glock from his grandfather. At around 3 a.m., he stood outside the house. He fired twice through the exterior wall, straight into Emma's bedroom. No shattered glass, no sound loud enough to wake the house. Just 2 shots in the dark, aimed at the exact place he knew she would be sleeping. One bullet struck Emma Walker behind her left ear. She was asleep. She never woke up. She never had a chance. The next morning, something felt off. Emma's bedroom door didn't open the way it usually did. She didn't come out for breakfast. Someone went to check on her, touched her foot, and found it cold. Saw her lips beginning to turn blue. For a moment they thought something medical had happened during the night. Something natural, something explainable. It wasn't. Paramedics arrived. Then detectives, and very quickly the truth came into focus. Emma Jane Walker had been shot in her sleep. Detective Chip Merritt and his team began working through everyone connected to Emma. Her family, her friends, the people who knew her well. Almost immediately, one name kept surfacing: Riley Gaul. Again and again, because of the relationship, because of what people had witnessed over 2 years, because of the way it had ended. One of Riley's closest friends, Alex McCarty, came forward. He told detectives that Riley had taken a gun from his grandfather the weekend Emma died. When investigators asked Riley directly about the gun, he denied everything. Said he hadn't shown it to anyone, said he didn't have it at all. McCarty, investigators told him, had no reason to lie about something like that. Riley said he didn't know where the gun was. Then he did something that made the picture even clearer. He sent messages to friends asking them not to speak to detectives about the weapon. But by then, some of his friends were already questioning him. They had been listening to what he said, watching how he moved, and something didn't sit right. McCarty and another friend, Noah Walton, didn't stay quiet. They went to the authorities. They wanted to help. What detectives set up next was fast, precise, and caught on camera. On the Tuesday night after Emma's murder, less than 2 days after her family found her, investigators ran a sting operation using Riley's own friends. McCarty and Walton were wired with microphones. A small camera was hidden in a key fob. Detectives could listen in live as it happened. They sent them to meet him. Riley had a plan. He wanted to get rid of the gun. Throw it into the Tennessee River. In his own words, recorded while investigators listened, "I need to get rid of the gun. I'm going to throw it into the water. They'll never find it." They drove to the River Bluff Wildlife Area, a quiet overlook above the river, and as they approached the water, police moved in. He still had the gun. In the car with him, gloves and black clothing. The same kind of clothing Emma had described seeing outside her home in the nights before she died. William Riley Gaul was taken into custody that night. There's something worth pausing on before we get to the trial. Something that I keep coming back to every time I read through this case. Riley Gaul wasn't operating blindly. He constructed a system. He found a way around being blocked. He staged an emergency to force Emma to respond to him. He moved around her neighborhood at night, on foot, in dark clothing, watching a house her parents had explicitly told him to stay away from. He took a weapon from his own family. He aimed it through a wall at a sleeping 16-year-old girl, and within hours of her death, he was already coordinating with friends to make the evidence disappear. That is not a person who lost control in a single terrible moment. What troubles me about it, what I genuinely cannot move past, is the gap between what he performed and what he planned. He showed up to comfort people. He positioned himself as someone concerned about what had happened to Emma. And underneath that performance, there was a sequence of deliberate actions stretching back weeks, each one building on the last. That is not what grief looks like. That is what a cover story looks like. And the question that sits underneath all of it, the one I don't think has a comfortable answer, is this: at what point exactly should the people around him have been able to see it? In January 2017, a grand jury indicted Riley Gaul on 7 counts: first-degree murder, felony murder, stalking, reckless endangerment, tampering with evidence, possession of a firearm during a dangerous felony, and theft for taking the gun from his grandfather. His family posted $1 million in bail. He was released while awaiting trial. Emma's family went home to a house with an empty bedroom. He went home. The trial of William Riley Gaul opened on the 30th of April, 2018, in Knox County Criminal Court before Judge Bobby R. McGee. It had taken over a year to get there, delayed in part by a defense request for more time to prepare, which the judge granted. Knox County District Attorney Charm Allen led the prosecution. Her husband, Assistant District Attorney Kevin Allen, would deliver the closing argument. Behind him, visible to the jury throughout the trial, was a photograph of Emma Walker, smiling. In her cheerleading uniform, the prosecution's argument was direct. Riley intended to kill Emma. He had been inside that house. He knew the layout. He knew where she slept. He took a gun, drove to her neighborhood in the middle of the night, and fired twice through the wall at the exact location where she would be lying. Kevin Allen told the jury plainly, Emma had been shot and killed in the safety of her own home. The defense, led by attorney Wesley Stone, didn't dispute that Riley fired the shots. What they challenged was intent. Stone argued that the shooting had been a reckless attempt to frighten her, similar, he said, to the staged kidnapping in The Figure in Black. He told the jury that believing Riley intended to kill Emma would require assuming he knew exactly where her head would be on the bed. The prosecution's response to that was quiet and precise. Riley had spent time in that house. He knew the room. He fired twice, and one of those bullets struck Emma Walker behind her left ear while she slept. The jury deliberated. On the 8th of May, 2018, the verdict came back. Guilty, first-degree murder, felony murder, stalking, theft, possession of a firearm during a dangerous felony, tampering with evidence. As the words were read aloud, the courtroom reacted. Audible gasps from the gallery. Riley, who had been free on bond throughout the trial, was taken into custody immediately. Outside, the people who loved Emma.
Riley Gaul expected back in court next month, nearly a decade after the murder of Central High School cheerleader Emma Walker. Gaul has a post-conviction hearing set for July 25th at 1 o'clock in Knox County Criminal Court. Gaul was sentenced to 51 years in prison after being found guilty of shooting Walker in her bedroom in 2016. Now, the former Maryville College football player was 18 at the time, Walker 16. Gaul's latest motion seeks a new trial or acquittal, arguing there wasn't enough evidence for the conviction.
Held on to each other. Under Tennessee law, a first-degree murder conviction carries an automatic life sentence. Riley Gaul received that sentence. He would not be eligible for parole for 51 years. Additional charges brought the total time to 60 years. At sentencing, he chose to speak. He apologized to the Walker family. He said the shooting had been an accident, that he only meant to scare her, not kill her, that he was sorry for taking her away. Jill Walker responded. She said he knew exactly what he was doing. He had been in their home. He knew where Emma slept. There is very little room left after that. In June 2021, Riley filed a motion for a new trial, arguing insufficient evidence and procedural errors, including objections to a crime scene photograph being shown to the jury and to testimony about a video game, Call of Duty. Prosecutors had used it to explain a concept called wall banging, the idea that an experienced player learns to fire through walls at positions they already know, at targets they cannot see. The prosecution's point was quiet but precise. Riley Gaul had played that game. He knew Emma's room. He fired twice through a wall in the dark and struck a 16-year-old girl behind her left ear. The jury understood what that meant. The motion for a new trial was denied. In February 2023, the Tennessee Court of Criminal Appeals reviewed the case and upheld the murder conviction. A minor adjustment was made to one lesser charge. The main verdict did not change. Riley Gaul remains incarcerated at the Northwest Correctional Complex in Tennessee. Emma Walker never became the neonatal nurse she talked about. She never walked into the East Tennessee Children's Hospital as a member of staff, never cared for the smallest and most fragile patients the way she had planned. But something of her is there anyway. A room in the neonatal intensive care unit at East Tennessee Children's Hospital has been dedicated to her memory, the same kind of space she once hoped to work in. At Central High School, her classmates created the Emma Walker Memorial Scholarship, supporting students going into healthcare, continuing the path she never got to finish. And at Tommy Shumpert Park in Knox County, a dog park was renamed in her honor, the Emma Jane Walker Memorial Dog Park. Because her family remembered how much she loved animals, and they wanted that remembered too. Her mother said she was chosen. Wanted. A huge blessing from the very beginning. She was 16 years old with a specific plan, a clear direction, and a warmth that made the people around her feel, without effort, that things were going to be okay. That's who was supposed to keep living. If this story stayed with you, and I think it will, there's one thing I'm going to ask you to do. Not the subscribe button, not yet. Just share this video with one person who you think needs to hear Emma's name said properly, told fully, treated as the story of a real human being rather than a headline. One share. That's all. And if you want to be here for the next story, because there is always a next story, and they all deserve to be told this way, then subscribe now. This channel exists for exactly this. For the cases that deserve more than a paragraph. For the people who deserve more than a footnote. Emma Walker deserved more than she got. The least we can do is make sure the world knows who she was. I'll see you in the next one.